Have you ever been so deeply hurt that forgiveness feels impossible? Maybe it was a betrayal, a loss, or an injustice so painful that moving on seems out of reach. The past haunts you, and no matter how much time passes, the wound still feels fresh. Today, we're diving deep into Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lysa TerKeurst, a transformative book that offers a way to finally release the grip of pain and reclaim your life. Stay with me as we explore the profound lessons from this book, because this might just be the message your heart needs to hear. Lysa TerKeurst begins Forgiving What You Can't Forget with a deeply personal reflection on the way trauma defines our lives, creating a clear before and after moment. She acknowledges the brutal truth that forgiveness is not easy, and in many cases, it feels unfair. Why should we forgive when the other person shows no remorse? Why should we be the ones to release the hurt when the offender doesn't even acknowledge the pain they've caused? Through raw storytelling and honest introspection, TerKeurst invites readers into a journey of processing pain in a way that allows for healing. She doesn't diminish the wounds we carry. Instead, she validates them. She understands that forgiveness can feel like a betrayal of our pain, as though letting go means the wrong never happened. But here's the reality. Unforgiveness keeps us bound to the pain, while forgiveness releases us to a life of freedom. This book is not about making excuses for those who hurt us. It's not about forcing reconciliation where it isn't safe or healthy. It's about reclaiming our peace, learning to set healthy boundaries, and understanding that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. Chapter 1. Forgiveness, the double-edged word. Forgiveness is a word that carries both comfort and conflict. We love the idea of receiving forgiveness when we're the ones who have done wrong, but when it comes to extending that same grace to those who have wounded us, suddenly forgiveness feels like an impossible task. Lysa describes forgiveness as a double-edged word. It cuts both ways. It's something we desire when we are in the wrong, but something we resist when we have been wronged. She acknowledges that many people hold on to unforgiveness because they believe it's the only form of justice they have left. She introduces a hard truth. Unforgiveness doesn't punish the person who hurt us, it punishes us. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. The bitterness takes root, infecting every part of our lives. It affects our mental health, our relationships, and even our physical well-being. The person who hurt us may not even be thinking about what they did, but we remain trapped in the prison of pain, replaying the offense over and over in our minds. Lysa makes a crucial distinction. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. Many people resist forgiveness because they believe it means restoring a broken relationship. But true forgiveness is about releasing the need for revenge, not necessarily restoring the relationship. In this chapter, she challenges us to examine the weight we carry when we refuse to forgive. She asks a piercing question: what if the person who hurt you is never sorry? What if they never acknowledge the pain they caused? Do you really want to let them have that much power over your life? She urges readers to consider an alternative, not for the sake of the offender, but for the sake of our own healing. Chapter 2. Welcome to the table. Lysa introduces the idea of processing forgiveness in community, recognizing that healing is not something we are meant to do alone. Throughout her own journey of heartbreak, she gathered with friends and counselors to talk about the complexities of forgiveness. She extends that same invitation to the reader, offering a metaphorical table where we can sit together and honestly confront our pain. One of the most profound insights in this chapter is that forgiveness is not a one-time event. It's a process. It's not something we wake up one day and decide to do completely. Rather, it's something we must choose again and again, day by day, moment by moment. She lists common reasons people resist forgiveness. Fear that the offense will be repeated. Feeling like forgiveness lets the offender off the hook. The belief that withholding forgiveness gives us a sense of control. Worry that forgiving means forgetting the pain. Not feeling emotionally ready to forgive. Through deep reflection, Lysa helps us recognize that unforgiveness is an emotional weight we were never meant to carry. She encourages us to step into the process of forgiveness, even when it feels impossible. Chapter 3. Is this even survivable? In this chapter, Lysa acknowledges that some wounds feel too deep to ever heal. She describes how our triggers and emotional reactions can catch us off guard, making us feel like we're drowning in pain all over again. She introduces an important idea. Forgiveness is not about erasing pain. It's about learning to survive and thrive despite it. Through a deeply personal story, she shares how unresolved pain can manifest in unexpected ways, whether it's anger, avoidance, or breakdowns that feel out of our control. She tells a story of slamming a door in frustration, only to realize that the anger she was expressing had nothing to do with the moment she was in. It was years of built-up pain surfacing in an uncontrollable way. She encourages readers to see pain as an invitation to healing. Instead of burying emotions, we must acknowledge them, process them, and allow them to move through us. If we don't, we will continue to project our wounds onto those around us, causing even more hurt. Chapter 4. How is forgiveness even possible when I feel like this? This chapter is a turning point in the book. Lysa shifts from recognizing pain to offering a path forward. She acknowledges that forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a decision. If we wait until we feel ready to forgive, we may never do it. She recounts a powerful session with her counselor, where she admitted that she felt incapable of forgiving because the person who hurt her wasn't even sorry. Her counselor responded with a game-changing truth. Your healing is not dependent on their choices. Your healing is dependent on your choices. Lysa unpacks this profound insight. If we attach our healing to another person's remorse, we will remain stuck in pain indefinitely. But when we realize that healing is something we have the power to choose, independent of anyone else, we can begin to step into freedom. She explains that forgiveness is not letting someone off the hook. It's taking them off your hook and placing them onto God's. With this realization, the journey to healing truly begins. Chapter 5. Collecting the dots. In this chapter, Lysa introduces the idea of collecting the dots, which means identifying and acknowledging our pain. She emphasizes that before we can truly move forward, we need to take an honest inventory of what has happened to us. Too often, people either suppress their pain or try to rationalize it away, thinking that minimizing the hurt will make it easier to handle. But Lysa makes it clear, pain that is not properly acknowledged is pain that cannot be properly healed. She encourages readers to sit with their pain, not as a means of self-pity, but as an essential step in healing. She suggests journaling, therapy, or honest conversations with trusted friends as ways to begin collecting the dots. She also warns against spiritual bypassing, using faith to dismiss pain rather than addressing it head-on. A key takeaway from this chapter is that every wound leaves a mark, and those marks shape how we interact with the world. If we do not examine them, we will continue to be triggered by them in ways that keep us stuck in cycles of hurt, anger, and resentment. Chapter 6. Connecting the dots. Once we've collected the dots of our pain, we must begin connecting them. Lysa explains that pain often follows patterns. Many of our struggles today are connected to past wounds we haven't fully processed. For example, feelings of rejection from childhood may influence how we react to a friend's betrayal as an adult. She shares personal experiences of realizing how deeply past wounds affected her reactions to present situations. She describes how old hurts create false narratives in our minds. For instance, if someone we love betrays us, we may internalize a lie that says, "I am unworthy of love." These false beliefs then shape our thoughts, behaviors, and relationships in ways that aren't healthy. The challenge in this chapter is to recognize how our past experiences have shaped the way we react to pain. Lysa suggests that readers ask themselves questions like, what past experiences are influencing how I feel about this current situation? What false beliefs have I accepted about myself because of past pain? How is my pain influencing the way I see God, others, and myself? This chapter is all about self-awareness and recognizing patterns so that we can break free from unhealthy cycles. Chapter 7. Correcting the dots. Once we understand how past pain influences are present, we must begin correcting the dots, changing the way we process our pain so that it no longer defines us. Lysa discusses the importance of renewing our minds, a biblical principle that involves replacing lies with truth. She emphasizes that just because we've experienced pain doesn't mean we have to carry it forever. We have the power to change the narratives we tell ourselves. A major focus in this chapter is learning to reframe our experiences. Instead of seeing ourselves as victims, we must start seeing ourselves as survivors. Instead of believing that we are unworthy because someone mistreated us, we must affirm that we are valuable despite what happened. Lysa also discusses the power of gratitude in shifting our perspective. She doesn't suggest that we minimize our pain, but rather that we look for signs of goodness even in the midst of hardship. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, but it does help us see beyond it. A practical exercise from this chapter is writing a new narrative, one that reflects healing, hope, and self-worth rather than pain and victimhood. Chapter 8. Unchangeable feels unforgivable. This chapter tackles one of the hardest truths about forgiveness. Some things cannot be changed, and we must learn to live with them. Lysa acknowledges that some wounds are permanent, relationships that won't be restored, betrayals that cannot be undone, losses that will never be reversed. And yet, she insists that we can still find peace. She addresses the frustration many people feel when they believe they deserve justice but never receive it. She reminds readers that justice is ultimately in God's hands. While it's natural to want to see the person who hurt us face consequences, we cannot let our healing depend on whether or not justice is served. Lysa shares her personal struggle with letting go of the need for fairness, recounting times when she wished those who wronged her would face the consequences of their actions. But she came to understand that holding on to that bitterness only hurt her more. She had to release her desire for justice to God and trust that He would handle it in His way and timing. This chapter is deeply emotional, yet freeing. It teaches that acceptance is not the same as approval. We don't have to approve of what happened to us, but we do have to accept it in order to move forward. Chapter 9. Boundaries that help us stop dancing with dysfunction. In this chapter, Lysa makes it clear that forgiveness and boundaries are not mutually exclusive. Many people mistakenly believe that forgiving someone means allowing them back into their lives in the same way. However, Lysa emphasizes that forgiveness is about releasing the burden of resentment, while boundaries are about protecting ourselves from further harm. She introduces the concept of dancing with dysfunction, a pattern where people continuously allow toxic individuals to manipulate, hurt, or control them because they believe that's what forgiveness requires. But true forgiveness does not mean putting ourselves in harm's way. Lysa provides practical advice on how to set and enforce healthy boundaries. 1. Identify the toxic patterns. What behaviors are causing harm in your life? 2. Decide what is and isn't acceptable. What changes do you need to make to protect yourself? 3. Communicate your boundaries clearly. Be firm but respectful when setting limits. 4. Stick to your boundaries. Don't allow guilt or pressure to make you compromise your well-being. She also addresses the fear that many people feel when setting boundaries, especially if they have been conditioned to believe that saying no is selfish. She reassures readers that protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. A powerful quote from this chapter is, "You're not responsible for managing other people's emotions at the expense of your own well-being." Lysa explains that while forgiveness is something we do within our own hearts, boundaries are something we establish in relationships. The two are separate but equally important. She encourages readers to see boundaries as an act of self-respect rather than punishment for the other person. When we establish boundaries, we create space for healthy relationships, whether that means repairing the relationship under new conditions or walking away entirely. Chapter 10. Because they thought God would save them. In this chapter, TerKeurst explores a profound and often unspoken struggle. What happens when we feel like God has let us down? Many of us hold onto the belief that if we do everything right, if we pray, trust, and stay faithful, then God will protect us from pain. But what happens when suffering still finds us? What happens when our prayers seem unanswered and our faith is shaken? Lysa takes us through the biblical story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, 3 men who refused to bow to King Nebuchadnezzar's golden statue. They believed that God would save them from being thrown into the fiery furnace. But what makes their story remarkable is their declaration of faith. Even if he does not, we will not bow. Daniel 3 verse 18. This chapter challenges us to wrestle with the even if he does not moments in our own lives. What if the betrayal still happens? What if the marriage still ends? What if the person who wronged us never apologizes? Can we still trust God and move forward in faith, even if our circumstances don't change? Lysa shares her own struggles with this reality, reflecting on the times she felt abandoned by God. She acknowledges that these moments are not easy. However, she reminds us that God's goodness is not dependent on our circumstances. Even when life doesn't go the way we expect, we have a choice: to become bitter or to keep trusting that God is still working behind the scenes. A key takeaway from this chapter is that faith is not about receiving everything we ask for, but about trusting God even when we don't. Chapter 11, Forgiving God. This chapter tackles one of the most difficult and rarely discussed topics. What do we do when we feel like we need to forgive God? Of course, God is perfect and does not sin. He does not need forgiveness in the way humans do. However, Lysa acknowledges that many of us carry deep feelings of disappointment, betrayal, and confusion toward God. We may not say it out loud, but deep inside, we wonder, why did God allow this to happen to me? Why didn't he stop it? She explains that feeling hurt by God is a real and valid emotion. Suppressing these feelings doesn't make them go away. It only creates distance between us and him. The only way to heal is to bring these emotions to the surface and process them honestly. Lysa emphasizes that God is big enough to handle our anger and disappointment. He doesn't want us to pretend we are okay when we are not. Instead, he invites us to bring our questions, doubts, and wounds to him. She encourages readers to be honest in prayer. Tell God exactly how you feel, even if it's raw and messy. Seek biblical truth. Remind yourself of who God is, even when emotions tell you otherwise. Give yourself permission to grieve. Healing doesn't mean ignoring your pain. It means working through it with God. The breakthrough comes when we realize that God is not the cause of our pain. He is the source of our healing. Chapter 12, the part that loss plays. Loss is one of the hardest parts of life, and forgiveness often involves grieving what we lost. Whether it's the loss of a relationship, trust, innocence, or a dream we once had, pain changes us. Lysa helps readers understand that grief is a necessary part of the healing process. She emphasizes that many people struggle to move forward because they haven't fully acknowledged their losses. Instead, they push their pain aside, hoping time will heal it. But time alone does not heal. Intentional grieving does. Lysa introduces the concept of naming your losses. This means sitting down and listing everything that was taken from you because of the hurt you experienced. Maybe it was your ability to trust, your sense of security, or even your self-worth. Whatever it is, acknowledging these losses allows you to begin releasing them. She also talks about the importance of mourning with God. So often, people think of grief as something to endure alone. But Scripture tells us that God is close to the brokenhearted. Psalm 34 verse 18. He wants to walk through our grief with us, providing comfort and strength. The final takeaway from this chapter is that loss is real, but so is healing. We cannot change what happened, but we can choose how we move forward. Chapter 13. Bitterness is a bad deal that makes big promises. Bitterness is one of the biggest obstacles to forgiveness. It promises protection, but delivers poison. Lysa describes how bitterness often starts small, just a little resentment, a little grudge, but over time, it grows. It convinces us that holding on to anger will keep us safe, that refusing to forgive will prevent future pain. But in reality, bitterness only traps us in an endless cycle of hurt. She explains that bitterness manifests in different ways. Rehearsing the offense, constantly replaying what happened in our minds. Building walls, keeping people at a distance to avoid getting hurt again. Becoming easily triggered, reacting with anger at even minor offenses. One of the most powerful moments in this chapter is when Lysa asks, "Is bitterness really helping you? Or is it just making you more miserable?" She offers practical steps to break free from bitterness. 1. Recognize its presence. Be honest about how bitterness has affected you. 2. Interrupt the cycle. Replace negative thoughts with intentional prayers. 3. Refuse to let bitterness shape your identity. You are more than what happened to you. Ultimately, she reminds us that bitterness does not heal. It only deepens our wounds. Forgiveness, though difficult, is what truly sets us free. Chapter 14. Living the practice of forgiveness every day. This final chapter brings everything together, emphasizing that forgiveness is not a one-time event. It's a daily choice. Lysa explains that even after we've made the decision to forgive, memories will surface. Triggers will happen. Old wounds may start aching again. This does not mean we've failed. It just means we must recommit to forgiveness every day. She outlines practical ways to do this. Pray for those who hurt you, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Speak words of release. Instead of saying, "I'll never forgive them," say, "I choose to let this go." Surround yourself with healthy support. Healing is easier when we have people who encourage us. Remember that forgiveness is for you. It's about setting yourself free, not excusing what happened. She leaves readers with a powerful reminder. Forgiveness doesn't mean you weren't hurt. It means you refuse to let that hurt define you anymore. If you're struggling to forgive, know this: you are not alone. Forgiveness is hard, but staying in bitterness is even harder. The message of forgiving what you can't forget isn't just about letting go. It's about taking back your life. So what's your next step? Maybe it's writing a letter you never sent. Maybe it's setting a boundary. Maybe it's whispering a simple prayer of release. Whatever it is, choose healing. Choose to forgive. Choose to be free. If this book's summary resonated with you, let me know in the comments. What part of forgiveness do you struggle with the most? Let's talk about it. And if you found value in this, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more life-changing book insights. Thank you for watching, and remember, forgiveness is not about them. It's about you finding peace.